the heart of Virginia, there's a stretch of pavement that has ingrained itself in American racing history. Built in 1957 with just a bulldozer and a plot of land, Virginia International Raceway has become an icon. Over the years since its reopening in 2000, it has hosted IMSA, the American Le Mans Series, NASCAR, SCCA, and Champ Car races. Legends there including Roger Penske, Mark Donohue, Richard Petty, Hurley Haywood, Dan Gurney, and more. Between turns 11 and 12 stood a defying feature, an old oak tree. This tree stood untouched, shading the south end of the course for decades. For some, oak tree became a symbol of VIR and a reminder of how road courses used to be built. They used to be built with the lay of the land, following each contour and moving around obstacles, not through them. Earth may have been moved, but not tarnished. Oak tree was a lasting memory of when tracks were not just built, they came to be, like the tree. Although oak tree no longer stands, nor does hog pen turn 17, the corners both still bear the name of what used to exist, and the track stays unchanged the way it was meant to be, with the lay of the land, for the land. Maybe that's why Paul Newman called it heaven on earth.
The Washington, D.C. Region Virtual Racing League kicks off the second round of their virtual championship at Virginia International Raceway. Tonight's 30-minute multi-class event features two very different cars, the Ford FR500 Mustang and third-generation Mazda MX-5 Miata. One is a hammer, the other a chisel, as the field of 50 take the green flag on a Wednesday night. Hi everybody, Kyle Heyer, joined by Finney and DeCuna for a return to SimTV for WDCR SCCA Virtual Racing League action. Last week we had our 1.2 hours of the point. We raised money for the Boys and Girls Club of the Eastern Panhandle and raised over $400 for charity. This week, though, back to a regularly scheduled programming, Finney, and 30-minute races with a two-class format.
Yeah, just thanks again to everyone that did donate to that cause. Yeah, glad to have these guys back on the calendar for what we're going to see for most of the season, and that is the combination of the Ford Mustang and NC Miata, as you mentioned earlier. So glad to have these guys back. You have a huge field of cars, a lot more than I was expecting. You got 46 some odd people last time I checked the count. Heading around here in VR, mostly in the Mazda class, so there's definitely going to be a ton of action here at this track.
This track constructed back in 1957 in Alton, Virginia. VIR was closed from 1974 until 2000. Of course, that famous oak tree fell in 2013. This is one of those classic American road courses, Finney, but there's a huge portion missing from its history. As that 1974 to 2000 closure, it kind of missed probably a lot of what many would call the golden era of North American road racing, but it is back and with a vengeance, hosting the SCCA runoffs this season. That was just a couple of weeks ago, but we head into qualifying now for our 30-minute race, and qualifying for the MX-5 field in particular is going to be very, very important because that field, as you mentioned, 30 to 40 cars deep just in MX-5s alone.
Yeah, it's going to be a ton of cars to look at as we try to look through the order here to see who's qualifying out on the track. A lot of people out there on the track coming to the start-finish line to start their first lap, or actually complete their first lap.
So, the two different categories we've got here tonight, the first of which is the FR500 Mustang. This car, 325 to 350 horsepower, stick axle rear end, and this is just big, as the Ricky Bobby quote is, big, hairy American winning machine. This is the Ford FR500 Mustang. Christopher Lapras is back. We've seen him competing in this category here before in this series. Jake King is also running in the number 39, the King Brothers Racing Mustang. Mike Leader is here as well in the Falcon entry. Kevin Zhu, Darian Taggart, Dennis Barrett is back with us in the Mellow Yellow Machine. There is a bunch of drivers and names that we're familiar with here, including Paul Darling, Tala Sadiq, Kyle Herbst, Murphy Nichols, Wozencroft, Morehart, Max King as well. And then you head over into the MX5 category, and this is where things look real familiar to us here on Sim TV. Ken House-Seal currently leading in the MX5 category. DJ Alessandrini, Polata Casera, Sam Scott, Jamison Huffman. This is a homecoming for a lot of the drivers we haven't seen in over a year.
Yeah, just really glad to see these guys back out on the track. You can still see a lot of the drivers still have the winding road paint schemes on from the from that series that was about, what, 2 years ago now?
Yeah, I think the last one we did was 2021. I think. It was a while ago, so it has been a little while since these liveries have been relevant, but Ken House-Seal was the most recent winner of that competition that was held by Winding Road Racing. In terms of the class split here, you'll see that the ticker is essentially ordering by overall time, and there is about 12 to 15 of those Mustangs, and then the rest of the field, which is basically 40 strong, is all the MX5. And it's going to be a pretty wild start, especially in the next MX5 category. Lap time difference, I mentioned, one's a hammer, one's a chisel, but they're only about, I don't know, 6-7 seconds apart at the tail end of the Mustangs versus the pointy end of the MX5s.
Yeah, it's not too terribly big of a difference. It's going to be interesting to see these guys when they're fighting, especially in the corners. And coming down to the straightaways, obviously the Mustangs definitely going to have the leg up on the straightaway. That's where that V8 motor can stretch. Definitely a lot more horsepower than the Miatas. But the Mustangs are a lot heavier than the Miatas, too. So when it comes down to the corners, it's probably not going to be that big of a difference. And that could be a little frustrating for the Mustangs when they're working through lap traffic.
Certainly, there's Donald Lee in the number 13 heading down the hill here. Speaking of this racetrack, Finian, it is a challenging one from a bunch of perspectives. I think we'll get into the track map here in just a couple of minutes, but there's 17 corners here. One of the most challenging, I think, is Hogpen, that final corner, turn 17. Really easy to overstep the bounds over there.
Yeah, we see a lot of people, especially towards the end of the race, because they try to make that last-second desperate move down in Hogpen and in Roller Coaster, that entire last section. And we typically end up seeing them either make a big mistake or go flying off the track. And it's a sea of grass around here. So when you go off the track, it can be a really big pain to try to get back on. You can use a ton of time.
Here's a look at the track map here for Virginia International Raceway. Of course, this is a track that's been around, as mentioned, from 1957, and it all starts with that run down to turn number 1, the hairpin over there, then turn 2 into turn 3 at NASCAR turn, then turn 4 and 5. That sends you through basically the base of the S's. They call that snake through there, through 5 and 6, then up into the uphill climbing S's, 7 through 12, and then down the hill towards 12 and 13. That's Oak Tree, still retains that name even after the tree is gone. Then the long back straight, the run up the hill towards Roller Coaster at the bottom left of the screen, and then down through Hogpen to finish out a lap. That's what a lap looks like around here, and it goes by in about 2 minutes and 3 seconds, at least for our pole sitter, Christopher Lapras, on board now with Paul Darling as he heads down towards Oak Tree.
Yeah, this is another tough corner. You can see people typically try to make some moves with some success and with some failure, but the big key is the run off that corner, off of Oak Tree, getting down this long back straightaway. Both of these cars are very much momentum-based because they have a relatively low amount of horsepower considering the modern GTs and modern prototypes. So momentum, it's a big thing for these cars. Getting runs out of these corners is going to be huge, leading on these long straightaways.
Paul Darling second right now in the FR 500 class. Call these the big bores. That's a common moniker for cars of this kind in the SCCA. So we'll roll with big bore and GMX5 for the other category. Kyle Herbst as well in the Captain Crunch machine. One of the drivers on the successful winning team in the secondary class last week at the 1.2 hours at the point. Paired up with Andrew Pilata, who's in his own car this week in the MX5 class, currently provisional pole.
I was going to say, I'm a bit surprised to see Pilata. I feel like we usually see him mostly in the Mustangs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And Paul Darling, too. Interesting to see him in the Mustangs. We normally see him in the Miatas. A little bit of switching over from what we typically see out of these guys over the years.
And Pilata is only ahead of House-Seal by about 24 thousandths of a second. Love the livery on this car, too. This is kind of very of the era GMX5, but now Pilata comes around the final corner here. We'll see if he can improve. You get a total of 4 laps. This is Pilata's penultimate lap at the moment across the line here. 2:23.058, so potentially a warm-up for one last flyer.
Yeah, these guys don't really have that much time left. About maybe two laps if you're already about to come back to the line, or potentially only one more lap as Plata goes flying around here through these first few corners.
Darian Taggart in the number 50 car, autocrosser, and runs an S2000 in time attack competition at the moment. This is a very different machine than an S2000. Right now, Taggart is about 0.7 of a second off the pace. The spread across the Mustangs from first down to 13th, Taha Sadiq, who is last in the class, 2.5 seconds. As for Plata down to the last of the MX-5s, it's about, in terms of who's qualified, about 4 seconds. That's the spread right now, but the front is extremely close. The top 4 are all within about 2.5 of a second.
Yeah, you always love to see those tight gaps between the leaders, just because then you can typically expect some close racing, and we've always really seen close racing, even at this track. I mean, we've seen Dead Heat coming back to the line with the Winding Road Series, coming back to actually no, sorry, not with this series. I'm thinking of Redenzo Sports Car Challenge. Those are the GT4s. Those guys had a Dead Heat to the line at VIR, so I think the Miatas here can definitely put on a really solid showing.
There's Greg Ginsburg. The SCCA radio voice is running the Oreo livery, as he typically does. Usually if there's a chance for him to run the Volkswagen Jetta, he will do that. But tonight has to be forced to run the Hot Wheels and Oreo combination on this number 72 car. And there's a bunch of drivers that haven't qualified that could be forces to be reckoned with if they had done so. Ryan Maloney is one. He's on track right now. And Morgan Burkhardt is the other in the number 2. He has not yet laid down a qualifying lap. He will not get time to complete one. And we've seen Morgan be right up in the mix with Alessandrini, Hausil, and others in the last couple of seasons. So I think he'll be a real threat maybe next week once he gets a chance to qualify.
Yeah, I'm surprised he did not elect to put a time down. I'm just trying to make sure he's actually still in the server, that if he ended up having to leave. Yeah, no, he's still in the server, just has not elected to put a qualifying time down, so that's a bit interesting.
Murphy Nichols in the Smoketown Beer Mustang, 5th place for him. Hatchery in the 998. MX-5 runs 5th in his category. Jamison Huffman is back, as we mentioned. Vito Waxman is here. John Schwartz is here. Ryan Dunham, Vincent Mack, and many, many more. As Maloney on the back straightaway now. I think he's headed up towards Roller Coaster, and he is going to get a chance to finish at least one lap.
That is if he didn't go flying off the track when we weren't looking.
Yeah, I think it's a 15x incident limit tonight, and it is easy to get him here just by overstepping the bounds in a couple key places.
You're actually off by one. It's 14.
Okay, 14. That was close.
14, then every 8 you're going to be getting a black flag come down pit lane.
Here comes Maloney across the line. A 2:13.455 puts him up the positions into 13th place. Up into about row number 7. We'll roll through the starting lineup with you once we take the green, or once we take the pace lap, I should say. Burchak is here in the number 11, the 33rd place car in overall, 20th in class. Again, 33rd overall. That's the position you're going to see in the lower third on the left-hand side of the screen. That's the overall positions.
Let's see if anyone else is going to be close to getting a lap in.
Max King might get final effort in the number 19 Mustang. He's on lap 4 of 4.
Up and guess who's finally on the track? Morgan Burkhardt.
Yeah, it's a little too late, though. It's not going to do you a whole lot of good. If this was open qualifying, he still wouldn't be able to make it back to the start-finish line, but the session will end immediately upon...
He actually is coming back to the line right now,
oh.
But as you mentioned, if it's close qualifying, he's not going to get the chance.
Yep, it's not going to make a difference in the end. Which I think, if this was a planned maneuver to maybe take advantage of the lowering temperatures, perhaps that's going to be a mistake. Max King comes across the line and doesn't actually improve any. Well, he does. He grabs one more spot, jumps up to 6th, but he got bumped down previously. Go back to Morgan Burkhardt. Yeah, he might have just gotten in a little bit late, but this is not going to count. As soon as that clock ticks to 0, we're going racing for 30 minutes at Virginia International Raceway for the WDCR SCCA Virtual Racing League. As we get set to go racing, weather this afternoon here at the racetrack in iRacing is, was about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It's 109 degrees in the race session as we head back down to the racetrack. Finian is a big field with a lot of cars. We'll roll through the first couple rows of each category. I think we're going to kind of scroll through most of them. There are 50 entries, and just so that we don't tire ourselves out before we go green, we'll only roll through the first about 30 cars overall, I think, and we'll let the rest scroll. Kicking things off, though, on row number 1 in the Ford FR500, the big bore class. Up front, it's Christopher Lapras in the 04. Paul Darling starts second in the 155.
Back behind them, row number 2, it's going to be 39 Jay King lining up in third. Kyle Hurst next to him, the 89 in fourth.
Starting in 5th place is Murphy Nichols in the number 5. Max King will roll off in 6th in the number 19 Mustang.
Back behind them in 7th, Mike Leader going to be lined up in 7th place. Next to him, Matthew Morthart in the 22 in 8th.
9th place will be Kevin Zhu in the 243. That's the Falcon car. No, it is not right behind. That is the Prime America Industries car. Andrew Wozencroft rolls off alongside him in 10th in the number 80. That's that Ford Performance Mustang on the left.
And looking back and behind them, row number 6, Darren Tagger in 11th place. Next to him, Taha Sadiq lined up in the 40 in 12th.
And rounding up the field in the Mustangs is Dennis Barrett. Now we're moving on to row number 7 overall. Andrew Pallotta kicks things off for the Spec MX-5 category.
Yeah, and then back and behind them, row number 2, big heavy hitters. Ken O'Sill in the 23, lined up in 2nd. DJ Alessandrini in the 61 in 3rd.
Behind them, starting in 4th and 5th in class, Rob Casera, the number 77. He will start alongside Caleb Patry in that red 998.
Back behind them in 6th in class, Sam Scott in the 98, going to be lining up next to Jameson Huffman in the 989 in 7th.
8th place is Giancarlo Schooler in the number 111. Evan Schickel rolls off in 9th in class in the number 30.
Bob Casera going to be lining up in 10th in the 14. Edo Waxman going to be lined up in 11th place.
Starting in 12th, it's Jack Christie in the number 6. Ryan Maloney will roll off alongside him in 13th, the number 65.
Back behind them in 14, John Swartz going to be lining up next to Francois Brou in the 69.
All right, last row we're going to talk through. Will Robbins in the number 35. He will roll off 16th. Peter Lausen starts 17th in the number 56. All right, the rest of the order will be scrolling along the bottom of your screen. Quick look at the weather information here, Finian. It is toasty, 91 degrees on the racetrack, 84 in the air, partly cloudy skies, but a short race. The conditions aren't going to change a whole lot. You kind of got what you got.
Yeah, basically, and the big thing is because it's a short race, can afford to make a mistake. If you do so, you don't have a whole lot of time to make up for it. So it's going to be a big thing about keeping that consistency and also just keeping the car on the racetrack. Yeah,
and again, each class will get their own separate start. The Mustangs will take off, and then as soon as the MX-5 category gets to the pit entrance, they are good to accelerate. Andrew Pallotta will be in command of that. Heading up towards the climbing S's now. This is an area where in both of these cars, it's essentially flat out, maybe a little lift for confidence in the FR500, but you're basically stringlining these apexes and climbing the hill, dropping the tires on the curbs from side to side. It is a fun racetrack to do this to, but then you head towards Oak Tree, which opens up a passing opportunity, but it's also a mistake opportunity before that long back straightaway leading up to Roller Coaster, where I think most of the passes on this race will happen.
Yeah, and most passes are going to happen probably there, but also we can see a lot of the incidents and wrecks happen in this section when you have guys flying up side by side. It can get tough because one driver may not want to yield, and the other driver may also not want to yield, and that's when we see bad things happen.
There's the MX-5s. They are 39 strong just by themselves. Throw the other 13 in there. That means that we have a total of got 52 cars in total here, and actually before we take the green flag, I probably need to make an adjustment to the amount of cars I can see on my screen because there's a whole bunch of them, and it's going to mess up the ticker if I don't adjust this, so I'm going to get rolling here before we take the green flag.
Yeah, it's a remember that being an issue a while back. It's kind of funny because you don't think that would cause a lot of problems, but boy, would you be wrong.
All right. I think I will be good to go, but we'll see how things will handle. I haven't had that problem in a very long time, so hopefully that will not return. Those folks remember time ago that wasn't. And I actually don't think we've gotten everybody on the grid.
No, we are missing some guys just didn't grid or not in the servers. So it looks like we're going to be having 33 Mazda Miatas, but taking the green flag.
Yeah, so we're going to be missing about a half a dozen that qualified but will not race here this evening. All right, 30 laps is about 15 minutes, or excuse me, 30 minutes is about 15 laps worth of racing at Virginia International Raceway. Thanks for joining us here on Sim TV for the DC Region SCCA Virtual Racing League. This is round number 2, first of the point season. Lapras, Paul Darling, Jake King, Kyle Herbst, the front 2 rows in the FR500 Mustang. The green flag is in the hands of the starter. These drivers will start, then the MX-5s will start, and we are racing at VIR. Green flag flies and Lapras fires off. Good run down here, a couple cars wobbling on the brakes. Murphy Nichols dives out of the way. Almost contact there as we go back to the MX-5s. They're still pacing, but side by side is Darling and the 39 of Jake King, who got a cracking start. Here he comes up the inside for second.
Yeah, speaking of a start, Mazda Miata's off and away. They are accelerating to take the green flag, and a solid start from Andrew Pilata over at Ken Alceo.
Yeah, a little bit more disorderly here. They're kind of single filed out, maybe 2 and 3 wide, a little bit deeper in the field. But that was a pretty clean, good start for the MX-5 category. Pilata leads Hausil. Alessandrini is in the red on the outside of Casera in the green and gray. Good run through the first couple corners for the MX-5s as well. Back up to the Mustangs through the S's.
Yes, they go for the first time all nice and straight, so shouldn't have any issue here. We'll see if anyone goes off the track and gets offline. See a few puffs of smoke and a few guys offline. A little bit hairy, but they make it
one
on
car.
through.
One car is off. That was the Kyle Herbst machine. He dropped the other side on the left, but gathered it back up. He's under fire now from Max King in the 19.
And here we come to that back straightaway here. If you don't get a good run out of Oak Tree, could severely hinder. Running into a big crash heading out of the snake. 2 cars involved.
Now, Bob Casera is one. The other is Ryan Maloney. And those cars have fairly significant damage, I would say, and they get together here as the 14 crowds the 65 and into the tire wall on driver's right.
Yeah, unfortunately, both those guys out early on. Meanwhile, up in the front at the Mazdas, duking it out. Ken O'Seal has not let go of Andrew Pilata, but a bit of a gap back to Alessandrini.
Yeah, back it's about 5 car lengths back to DJ now, but Pilata, Hausil lead the way up in the Mustangs. Lapras and King are your top 2 as they complete the first of probably about 15 laps. Make that 14 to go this time as they cross the stripe.
Yeah, was able to keep a decent lead as they head off into turn 1, but the top 3 all nose to tail and a little bit of appeal onto the inside for Jake King. Going to throw it up the inside side by side with the leader.
Jake King had a really good start to this race, and he is applying pressure. Third up to second in lap 1. He's going to open the door, though, through NASCAR for Paul Darling. Big climb up onto the curb for Jake King. Carries good speed, though, but nowhere to go with it for now.
Yeah, nowhere to go, especially in this section of track. It's so tight and narrow and twisty, it's hard to maintain side by side. So he's going to have to peel back and behind. Meanwhile, back in the Miatas, a run for Ken Alceel. Building up into turn 1, we saw a battle in the Mustangs and potentially one here in the Mazdas. Alceel looks to the outside, can't quite get anything done.
Alessandrini takes a big run to driver's left, but road still curves around to the right, so he has to go the long way around, but builds this run. Alceel covers through that kink back to the left before NASCAR. Wow, big climb for Alceel. That was almost a corner cut, I'd have to imagine. About as close as you're going to get without being a penalty.
Yeah, I don't see anything on the entry list. Oh, it was a spin, big spin in the back. An 18 Vincent Mock off the track.
Around for a loop, he'll get back rolling. Good close battles all the way through the MX-5 field. But it's just hard, again, to just keep an eye on so many cars. Here's what it looks like. Nose to tail, single file all the way through the field. We've got about 29 runners left in the MX-5 class.
And Alessandrini all over the back of Ken Alceel through the S's. Oh, and he gets a little bit of grass on the entry. Off they go, and then lost a little bit of time, and now he's got Robert Cusera to worry about in the 77.
Wow, just so much on the limit there through Oak Tree. On the left side tires, heading to that first right-hander, having to slow the car and turn the car at the same time. Wow, big bobble from a couple of the Mustangs. Murphy Nichols and Max King both had a moment, as Kyle Herbst is now trying to with Paul Darling behind him here down the front straight.
Gonna have a little bit of a look to the left-hand side. Big dive from Herbst. Gonna throw it around the outside. Thinks can he get it done? No, he can. Meanwhile, for the lead, still the leader side by side. King versus Lapras.
Great fight up front. Lapras again, no stranger to this FR 500 Mustang. He's run this often. Though has Jake King. A lot of drivers getting so much left side curve through NASCAR. King pops out of line, but not really a great passing opportunity here. Doesn't lead onto a straight long enough to build a run.
I think he's trying to hope and see if he can scare Lapras out of moving offline, but couldn't get him to do it. Couldn't get him to give a look at how close the Mustangs are. The entire top 5, top 6, all nose to tail.
Up through the climbing S's now when they pop out from behind the trees. Here they are, Jake King hounding Lapras. You see him understeer a little bit here. That opens the door for Darling, but passing through South Bend, probably not smartest idea there, and Darling backs off.
Yeah, it's all really a matter of picking and choosing your battles, where to make your move, where to attack. Ooh, Darling a little bit of a tap from behind from Kyle Herbst as they all check up an oak tree.
Look at this tight battle. This is fantastic. Really, it's everybody back to Giancarlo Schooler in the number 111. I think is kind of the tail of this group. But up towards roller coaster now. Look at this single file battle, and now it's going to be double file. Kyle Herbst
making the move on Paul Darling is just about going to get it. Darling still trying to fight. Who gets pushed off the line? Some contact there. And now Darling's going to lose one, potentially 2 spots. Now he's side by side with Murphy Nichols. Woof. Nichols more contact with Paul Darling as Darling got bullied out of 3 spots.
No, he made Matthew Morehart jump on the brakes very aggressively because he just needed to stop the bleeding there. Now onto the back straight goes the GMX-5s, and Pilata's going to have to start making this MX-5 a lot wider. Alessandrini and Hauseal are behind. Here comes the 23 car, though, for the race lead in GMX-5.
Side by side, they go off towards roller coaster. Hauseal with a huge run. Might have the chance to even clear Andrew Pilata before they get there. DJ Alessandrini also with a big run is not going to make it 3 wide. Going to try to follow Hauseal on through.
Yeah, he might be able to if he can stay drivers left here and keep the overlap. Now the advantage swings back to Pilata's favor as they do a couple long right-handers. But DJ's going to roll some great speed along the outside and take Casera with him.
Casera asking if DJ needed the bump. Well, he actually, instead of giving the bump, almost looked like he was going to pass. Now tries to give him the bump.
Whoop. Got Chrissy going for a wild ride at the exit.
Yeah, was able to save it, and even a car up ahead of him. Evan Schickel also went off the track for just a second. And freight train heading down into turn 1.
Hauseal, he would love to break free of this. It's going to be challenging. But DJ fights through to second place. Sam Scott is in the mix. 99 of Jamison Huffman. That's that pizza colored car in the mix as well, trying to put pressure on Sam Scott in that blue and black 98.
Oh,
a little bit side by side there. Yeah, Jamison Huffman gets a punch. Or Patry, rather.
Contact. Yeah, Caleb Patry fighting in the 998. Works his way by Huffman. They sort themselves out just for a second as they head towards the snake.
Andrew Chow trying to set up Adam Kobach. A little bit of damage to the back of the 85, so I think there's been a little bit of a push and shove here and there.
Yeah, a pretty decent shove, and also want to just look up the road just ahead of them. Morgan Berghart's been working overtime. Started in 33rd in class, all the way up to 16th in class, up 17 position.
Yeah, 47th to 29th overall. That was a great climb for him. And again, don't know the circumstances around the no qualifying, but he is making pretty short work of at least the back half of the field as we go back up to FR 500. Here comes Kyle Herbst now with a big run and squeeze through comes Jake King in front of the 89. A little bit of contact there, but goes to the outside of the leader. Oh, he's going to spin. No, he gathers it up. What a great save.
Caught a bit of grass on the outside, and just like that, Herbst is going to move up one more spot, but I'm sure Jake King had a bit of a heart attack there.
Yeah, that was some wild stuff. Let's go back and take a look at it again. Just grabs the dirt on driver's left. Big tank slapper moment, but even before that, we go back a little further. Down the front straight, watch this move here. Swings right in front of Kyle Herbst. I thought they might have touched there, they didn't. But then goes up and around the outside. Little bobble there. Keeps it straight, loses a spot to Kyle Herbst. A little deeper in the FR 500 field. There's Darian Taggart and Mike Leader. Taggart in the Traxxas car, Leader in the Falcon one. And Schickel has trouble, and way back towards the start-finish line is reset back to the pits.
Amount of rear damage as well. As we're talking about this final sector, the final quarter, in fact, just went off the track. Was trying to correct it, ended up overcorrecting to the left and hard into the barrier.
Yeah, it feels like there's nothing to hit around here, but the track kind of slopes away from the road. When you get into the grass, it just falls away. And, you know, this is one of those places that, you know, the track is narrow, and even though there's not a lot of walls near you, you're going to find them regardless, because once you step out of bounds, it's like Dover. It's a self-cleaning racetrack.
Self-cleaning in a very different sense, but both function exactly the same. But yeah, it is. There isn't many walls around here near the track, but you definitely will find them in the grass if you go far enough.
On board again with Jake King. Kyle Herbst drops the tire at the exit of Hog Pen. King gets a good run, but will Herbst try to defend this, or will he let him on by?
That's the ultimate question, right? Is he going to fight? Is he going to battle? He's got to pick one. And he's going to choose to fight it here, going to the outside into turn one yet again.
Whoa!
Deep on the brakes. Hello is
Max King just came from out of nowhere. Paul Darling gets gathered up in that. I think King just completely missed his braking point and just came from miles back.
Yeah, I think was focusing on maybe what the other two were doing on the front end. As you mentioned, just missed his braking point, then got hit checked by the other King, and Darling getting involved.
Yeah, Max King's car is destroyed. That's it for him. And we'll see what Paul Darling's got damage-wise. That is a lot.
Yeah, he already had some right-side damage, I think, from the contact we saw him earlier with the battles in the class. And then he's got a severe amount of front-end damage right there.
Great scrap back here for 10th, Ito Waxman. In the 10th place, Ito Waxman. Jack Chrissy, Will Robbins, Peter Lowson in this mess, and Jack just absolutely took advantage of Waxman there through the downhill.
Yeah, Waxman almost turned into him heading down through the final few corners. Will Robbins just in behind, also trying to make up some spots.
Robbins now, the good run to driver's left on Waxman, but 31 goes left, the 35 goes right into the braking zone for one, and behind them Lowson, and then there's Morgan Burkhardt in that number 2, up another 2 spots from the last time we mentioned him, 14th now in class.
This is probably one of the best recovery drives I've ever seen from somebody. I say recovery drive, although he did end up starting in the back, but is working his way up, is going to move, not really move, but have close contact. The battle's on his way on through.
DS is now back up in FR 500. It's Lapras over Herbst by half a second. At the front of the GMX5 field, Halcyon leads by 4/10 over Alessandrini. Rob Casera and Andrew Pilata run right behind. Then it's the second back to Patry and the rest of this field. Now, interestingly, this NC generation, this 3rd generation Miata, doesn't seem to be quite as scrappy as the newest generation, where you can really be nose to tail, bump drafting, pushing, and shoving. This one seems to take a little bit more skill to stay packed up like that, a little easier for drivers to spread out.
Yeah, it really depends on the person. It could be a positive or a negative. As they go up flying towards roller coaster, there you see Pilata trying to pull out a line. Potentially there he goes for a little bit of a look, decides not to. Gives Crucera, though, a little bit of a shove.
Yeah, Paul Darling has retired his 155, a frustrating way for his night to end. But the realities of racing with such a competitive group is things are going to happen. I'm actually really impressed at how many crashes we have not had in a 50-car field here at VIR, which can typically be kind of a messy racetrack in terms of car contact, especially at race starts. Hey, the field did a pretty good job. There's one car way off in the backdrop. Patry or Schooler that went for the ride? Or none. You look at the 31 bobbling.
Waxman going for a wild ride in the final few corners. A lot of people struggle through there, as we kind of had a feeling was going to be the case.
Yeah, this is just such a challenging corner. If you miss your turn in like Waxman did, see ya. There's just not a lot to catch you. All right, things are getting close in both of our categories now as we near the halfway point. 15 minutes to go. Halcyon defends Alessandrini for the lead in GMX5, and Lapras has Herbst hot on his heels at the front of FR500. This one's a little more volatile, though. We'll stay on board here.
Yeah, and Halcyon managed to eke out a little bit of a gap, probably I think up to maybe about a second ahead of Alessandrini, but everyone kind of worked together and reeled that 23 back in, so he's not been able to escape. It's been essentially a 6-car fight in that class, similar to what we've seen in the Mustangs.
And really full throttle up the hill here, and I don't think DJ is going to make a passing attempt yet. I think he'll do that on the backstretch.
Ooh, and Mustangs, Herbst a little bit of a dive to the inside, going to be sideways getting back on the power. Late move in turn one, almost got alongside, but couldn't quite get there.
This again is going to get pretty scrappy, especially with Jake King back in the mix. We've seen him hang that car out sideways, trying to grab a spot back. Third's where he started, second was where he was running, then Herbst kind of split the difference.
Working their way on through Snake and then heading towards the S's. Still nose tail.
And here comes the battle for the lead in GMX5. House Seal under fire from Alessandrini. DJ is through. Not quite. Still door to door as they head down the hill.
Yeah, hard part is clearing someone through this section of track, and there you see Alessandrini finally able to get by. Cusero also trying to have a chance at getting on through, but Alessio blocks the inside. Now slides back in front of Cusero as he's still got to run, and DJ drives off into the distance.
Lada's going to take overlap on Cusero now, not allowing him the opportunity to drive all the way to the right. It will open the door for Cusero on the left. Flying in formation as DJ tries to put distance now as House Seal's under fire from both sides.
Almost 3 wide for a second. There's Plata going to work to the inside of Halcyon. He's got the preferred lane. Can he get the run off the corner, though?
All this fighting is allowing DJ to get clear. 7, 8 tenths. We saw how long it took for everyone to run 10 down. DJ will not be any easier. And they get it sorted.
Plata able to get that second place spot, so now they can try to catch back up to DJ. I think DJ's also going to find it's going to be pretty hard to break away from the pack, considering Halcyon was also unable to do so successfully.
One car a little wide there. That's high to second. The number 21 drops a spot to Francois Brou, who we're glad to have back this season in the number 69. There he is. Other drivers we haven't talked about in a little while that are down a lap to the overall leaders. Lazar Mann in the 26, Donald Louis in the 13.
And update from what happened with Jack Chrissy. He's running in about 12th place, engine blue.
Oh, look out, leader in Mustangs navigating MX5. Sorry, Finney, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so Jack Chrissy, his engine ended up destroyed, and you can figure out the reason. It's because, again, he said in the text chat in the server, manuals would be fun, they said.
The old money shift. I had to cut you off there for a second. There was a car going a lap down. I think it was a Lazar Mann.
And that's going to be the big thing we're going to be talking about soon, is that lap traffic. The leaders are going to start having to deal with that, as well as their own battle here that they got for the lead.
You can see the rest of the field up to the driver's right here. And look at Oak Tree. Look how busy Oak Tree is at the tail half of the MX5 category. And right now it's Louis Alessi that I think was off track in the 43. There he goes. Lost a spot to Chow, Kobach, Furchak, and more as the Mustangs bear down.
They're going to be bearing down hard, and they got a string of Miatas all battling for position, so they can't quite expect these guys to pull over because they're in their own separate fight for position.
Now swing to the left goes Lapras. He's been in command of this race so far. Kyle Herbst, though, trying to keep him honest. Plata has run down Alessandrini, and GMX5 will take you back there in a second. Here they are through turn 1, and the battle's back on. Here comes Plata.
Yeah, didn't quite do anything through turn 1. Was trying to focus more on the exit off through turn 3 and out in NASCAR turn number 3 as we see them go on through. No quite change for position as the Mustangs catching the Miatas. Whoa, and the leader Lapras in the grass trying to get on by.
Big move for cars.
3 wide.
Yeah, and Jake King will clear him. Really, it's the top 3 versus everybody else in the Mustangs. Lapras, Herbst, and King have set sail. We'll back up to GMX5 because this could get spicy as well in the climbing S's.
King and Spice. You haven't really quite seen anyone make a move. It's all about running nose to tail. That being said, Housey got very close to the back end of Pilata, almost turned him.
Kind of dancing on the edge here. Turn the car in, tip it in, drive it on the throttle. Rear end sliding around just a little bit. Pilata being very particular right now where he's placing the car. Tucks in a little bit better exit here for Pilata. DJ's in the dirt on the backstretch now.
Yeah, it's going to kill his run down the straightaway, so he's going to be open to an attack from Pilata. We'll see what he decides to do. Just going to stick to the right-hand side. Here comes Pilata on the left-hand side.
And I think Andrew's going to get this back, provided he can clear DJ before roller coaster. That means you also have to outbrake him. Might do it by the time they get to the braking zone. He will now. Ken Alseal opens the door. He's going to jam the 23 up the inside. Can't complete that pass, though.
Yeah, Alseal was deciding to also follow on through. Couldn't quite get it done. Here comes the 77 to Casera, joining the fray, trying to move up one spot, see if he can get a run at Alseal.
Good run by DJ, though, at the exit of Hogpen. Pilata a little bit lazier on the turn-in, and that's going to leave DJ right behind him on the front straight. Leaders in Mustangs are kind of follow the leader at the moment as we are under 10 minutes to go. The battle's in GMX5. Here's Pilata and Alessandrini once again going at it.
Side by side, off into turn one. Casera almost looking up to the middle for just a second. Or sorry, Alseal looking up the middle just for a second. And Pilata gonna work his way on through past Alessandrini. Can DJ have a chance back at him? Gonna still be to the inside by turn three.
Yeah, he's got him. And through goes DJ. Is it too much though? Look at Alseal using all the curb on the inside of NASCAR. Kevin Zeus had problems in the 243 Mustang briefly. Let's see what happened to him. Oh, he had a lot of damage from something.
Yeah, so this is already pretty distance. That'll do it.
Yep.
What happened there?
Lap traffic, GMX5 cars to the inside of the 13 here. Car in front of him spins and goes around for a loop.
That is a man in the 26 car. Oof. Right in the left front. So that's why he knocked his suspension out of tow. So basically had no handling heading down into roller coaster.
Back to GMX5. Pilata flips back into second place. It's been a pretty volatile fight for most of this race. And back up to Mustangs. This is going to get really wild. King, Herbst, and Lapras into traffic at South Bend.
And they managed to get past one car. That's the 56 56 Miata.
Peter Lausen.
Peter. Yes.
Morgan Burkhardt is up to 8th in GMX5. That's a great climb.
You can only imagine what would have happened if he actually started up there.
They're an issue at South Bend. I thought I saw smoke dramas there.
Oh yeah, Andrew Chow and Darian Tagger got into something. Tagger got into Kobach.
Wow. There was all sorts of stuff going on over there.
Darian Tagger trying to get past Adam Kobach in the 85.
Just hooks him in the rear and sends him for a slide. 29, Chow just bails off the track, unable to miss that whole scenario. Back to GMX5, Alessandrini, Alseal, Pilata, and Lapras.
For the lead in Mustang. Lapras off the track.
Gets it back straight, but will lose the lead at a very critical time. Here's what happened.
As he's side by side with the Mazda, but just overshot the last corner, went off the track, almost came flying back on. And in Jake King.
Well, he's got 3.6 seconds he needs to make up to get the lead back. He is going to be on a mission now.
Jake King almost turning colors in turn one. Yeah, that got very nice for a second.
Here's what that looked like from high above. Brake rotor's glowing here. King sees the door open and jams it up the inside, but Herbst taking none of that.
Battle's getting spicy here in the closing minutes, and also, as I mentioned too, the Mustangs, they're the leaders in Mustang. They're approaching the leaders in the Mazda category, so this could see some overlap here. And imagine trying to get past the whole 6 of these guys without causing some sort of frustration. So that's going to get interesting when that happens.
And the straightaway speed difference isn't that enormous here. Maybe 15 miles an hour at max speed. 115 for the Miata, maybe 130 to 140 for the Mustang. And the only place where that's really going to matter is the front straight or the back straight. Everywhere else, these cars are.
Calhurst into a lap car. The two, Morgan Burkhart almost turned him, and now they're side by side.
Oh, he's going to
place in
spin.
Mustang.
Whoa, he drifts for Kyle Herbst. He gathers it up. King turns
drifting
him.
again.
Oh, no.
Whew, that was a chaotic series of corners. They'll start at the top of the S's.
It could have been a lot worse, if I'm being honest. Right here, it's squeezed by the two. Goes for a big drift here. Turns in, and then King gets into him just a little bit. Sends him wide. Lapras retakes second place and now has 2 seconds. So King is 2 seconds clear and has a little bit of breathing room for now.
Yeah, Herbst is not happy with Burkhart for what happened. Not too happy, not too big of a fan of the two car.
5 minutes left, and GMX5, the top 6, are all kind of in the same group here. It's really been the front 3 that have been trading positions. Alessandrini, Hausil, Pilata in no particular order, as Herbst. No, Lapras is off again at 17.
Lapras off, and he was just complaining about the 2 as well, and I think Burkhart was involved with that situation.
Oh, all right, we have to go back and look at that. And here's Lapras behind the 2. It's on the overtaking car to do this safely, but I think, yeah, Morgan runs a little wide there. Yeah, definitely on Morgan that time. Bends the 0-4 for a ride and drops him now 7 seconds behind the leader, as in turn 1, big mess. But he scatters.
And this mixed class interaction is crazy, because every time a Mustang approaches a Miata, there's always something interesting that occurs.
I mean, the Miatas are generally faster in the corners than the Mustangs are. The Mustangs are faster at a straight line, but neither is really any better than the other at braking, so it just ends up being awkward.
And I think what's making it worse, too, is that the Mustangs have been approaching while they're battling amongst themselves, and they've usually been approaching Miatas battling amongst themselves, so no one wants to yield.
Seal was off at South Bend, keeps most of the car on the road, and lives to see another day here.
Oh, Jake King off in Oak Tree by himself.
The leader. And now Kyle Herbst will close that differential. It's hard to keep up with all this. He was off at South Bend already, and then turns into Oak Tree, just carries a little too much. Yeah.
He might have thrown his race away there, because that's, as you mentioned, reeled in Kyle Herbst to about a second. That's within firing distance. Speaking of which, firing distance, here comes Hausil to the inside of Alessandrini.
And Pilata smelling blood in the water here. Wow, that was tight. But Ken slots back in right behind DJ.
And not too far behind these guys are the Mustangs. There they come flying on through, and you can bet that Jake King is not going to be willing to wait for some of these guys, so this can get dicey here in these closing laps. Should have about 2 laps to go.
And despite all the dramas that we have seen, keep in mind that the MX-5 drivers haven't been paying any attention to that. They're going to see that Herbst is half a second back and go, oh yeah, Jake King's got tons of space. We don't need to let him go. We don't need to let this battle go. It's not that close. Well, au contraire, but they don't know that, so I think King is going to have a little more trouble getting through without the rest of the field sensing his urgency.
Okay, so there's their Andrew Pilata side by side with Ken Hausil trying to get it done in turn 1. Really, I don't know for any of these guys in the top 3 which is the right place to be on the last lap. DJ's been doing a decent job defending so far, but I'm not sure if that's going to last.
Just like Road Atlanta, this track is not straightforward in terms of where you want to be. You can run the inside heading into roller coaster. You can run the outside heading into roller coaster. Either way, wherever you want to position yourself, you do that on the backstretch heading towards roller coaster on the final lap. After that, it really is up to both drivers and how they handle that final sector and which lane people prefer, but I'm not sure I know what the right one is.
And here comes 2 angry Mustangs approaching into the mirror as they both go off the track for just a second, and into Oak Tree they go. They've caught the leaders in the Miatas. They caught them on the straightaway, so in an ideal world, this shouldn't be too bad.
Whoop, except you make a decision like that, and it's going to confuse everybody. King swings from right to left, opens the door. Now, he's not going to be able to get by all of them, though. The 2 leaders, well, he might be able to stick it up the inside. Will Ken Hausil try to throw the block here and prevent this? No, they're going to let everybody go, and that's going to work out the best it could have for King and Herbst.
And I was curious about
Herbst look at DJ slide. Oh, Herbst is off course, and so is King.
Oh, no, and he's going to spin back into the traffic of the Miatas. 3 wide in Honkman. That's not going to work.
Olada got the short end of that stick. Herbst drops far behind King, now has to repass everybody. We thought they had it done.
Lapras is back in this somehow.
Oh my gosh. I thought they had that all clean and done, but they overdrove into roller coaster racing each other as we get the white flag, the final lap here. And there is Lapras right behind Kyle Herbst. Oh, look out. Pilata swings to the right. Herbst on the brakes, dives for the spot. He'll grab it, and Lapras is going to squeeze through with a little contact to hip check to Pilata.
Yeah, Lapras saying, excuse me, pardon me, I got a race I'm trying to win.
Still 2 seconds to Jake King, who's clear of all the traffic.
And I also got to mention Murphy Nichols. He also has appeared back in the fray. He's going to have a chance to look to the inside of Lapras here, but it's already side by side with the Mustang.
Matthew Moore just drove straight off track at turn number 3. Mike Leader is out as well. Taggart will jump up to 5th place. And now the battle is on in GMX5. Here's Kyle Herbst squeezing up the inside, and now back to driver's left as they pass through the GMX5 leaders. The one driver has reset back to the pits. That has triggered the checkered flag, but that is not the checkered flag just yet. We are still on the final lap.
And curious to see now what Ken Osceola or even Robert Jussera, who you see me really quiet in behind there. They got the Mustangs, though. They're going to be willing to get on past. They got to wait just a second. That's Lapras and Nichols sitting in behind 3rd and 4th in class.
Yeah, but they should be well clear of this group now. But this has split up all the fights at the pointy end of the field. The Jake King has 2.5 seconds clear. This one's going to get interesting before it doesn't. And so will the battle behind them. Whoa, squeeze to Murphy Nichols from Lapras. And how Seal behind Alessandrini doesn't have room to get alongside.
Still has a few more corners, but the easiest passing point is behind them as they work their way to the final corners.
Checkered flag this time for Jake King. This was a wild one, and the 39 will come home. Started 3rd, ends 1st. Jake King wins the FR500 class. Kyle Herbst, Lapras, and Nichols, they drag race to the line. And in GMX5, it's going to be Alessandrini and Hausil that come home nose to tail. As there's other battles mid-pack here. Here's Heidesek in the 21, Francois Brou. This is for 13th in class.
Coming down into roller coaster 21, going to go flying off a little bit wide in the corner. Here comes Heidesek in the 21, trying to come back at him.
Not sure that Heidesek's in the 21 ahead. Bru's in the 69, yep.
Brou in the 69.
But not going to be enough, though, this time through. Bru's off course a little bit. Does he get it? I don't know what's going on. I can't tell if it's a good run or not. It is not. So he will not beat Heidesek back to the line. Barzinji and Andrew Chow work their way back to the line with Mike Leader in behind. Leader's going to give the 29 a shove, but it's not enough as they cross the line. I'm sure Chow would have loved that a little sooner. But
yeah, Chow did actually ask for a shove in behind coming to the line. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, wasn't enough.
That he did. Here's a look at your race results. That was a wild race. I think we expected some of that, but holy cow, what a mess.
Yeah. The Mazda race was pretty much as you expected. The Mustang race was all over the place. The leaders went flying off in some corners, hitting each other in other corners. It was wild for them.
Yeah, DJ Alessandrini gets it done in the MX5 category. Hausil 2nd. The rest of this is all overall results here. Morgan Burkhardt ends up 8th in class after starting all the way at the tail of the field. So a great run for him despite a couple of missteps there with some lap traffic. Joe Waxman, Will Robbins down the order just a little bit. But I will say that despite all the chaos, say the amount of crashed cars was actually lower than I was expecting. So I'll give a props, especially for the first 5 to 10 laps of that race.
Yeah, really solid job done by everyone. It's really hard racing. Obviously, of course, you're going to have some cars battered and bruised just with how many cars we had take the green flag. But overall, really good racing.
Good stuff. We're going to wait a minute here to see if we can get some drivers to chat with. We've got Jake King lingering, so we'll see if we can pull him in for a chat, as well as Alessandrini, maybe the other podium result finishers here from our second round of the season for the WDCR SCCA Virtual Racing League. What a fun fight. This track never disappoints, Finian.
Yeah, it never truly does. It always finds a way somehow to put on a good show. You typically don't expect good racing from VIR because it's such a technical and tight track, but it always typically does, especially in some of the slower cars.
And I think we have more of this to look forward to in the next couple of weeks. But we got an interesting schedule. I like this class combination. I think these cars, kind of the same era, they run together pretty nicely on track, I think.
Yeah, right. We got actually, it's funny. We were just talking about Road Atlanta being similar as far as you don't know where to be in the last lap. Guess what's next on the calendar?
Ooh, I'm excited. I can't wait for that one. Road Atlanta, that's a classic racetrack. And it's just another one of those kind of old guard places that is just really fun to race on. And it always puts on a good show, especially with the class fights that we have had. All right, we've got our third place runner in GMX5, Rob Casera, brings home third in GMX5. Rob, hey, congratulations. That was a fun fight to watch. I think you would have liked 2 spots better, but how wild was that race from your view out of your windshield?
Yeah, that race definitely got dicey in some situations. Just tried my best to hang on to the front guys, try to keep out of trouble, and see if I can last for the full race.
But to take me through that class interaction there, the FR500 and this version of the MX5, there is a speed difference, but it's not significant everywhere and in different ways. How challenging was it when the Ford FR500 field started kind of driving their way through the field?
Yeah, the big difference between the two is the straight line speed, and I saw my relative that they were catching us pretty close on the last few laps, so I knew it was definitely going to get interesting. Luckily, the top 2 FR500 guys caught us on the straight, so that wasn't too bad, but then it got a little dicey coming into the turn off the back straight, so it was just using your mirrors and making sure that you're driving clean and being conscious of all the other people around you.
Well, it was a great race to watch and a podium for the first round of the season. We head to Road Atlanta next week. 2 spots better next week, you think?
Yeah, we'll see what we can make happen. Just hoping to keep it on the track for the full race, maybe.
It's easier said than done, certainly, especially in the multi-class format, Rob. Hey, thanks so much for chatting with us, and we'll see you next week at Road Atlanta.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Move on now to our second place finisher in our Ford FR500 category. That, of course, is Kyle Herbst. Came home in second in the number 89, the Captain Crunch car. Kyle, what a wild race. That was a fun one to watch, but mistakes everywhere by everyone at the front of the big bore class. Take us through your night.
Yeah, I mean, well, at the very beginning, we had a pretty good pack together. Paul, myself, Jake, Lapras. We were running really good, and then once we started to hit traffic, it just kind of became the wild, wild west. I think Paul got punted in break zone before all that, and then, Lapras, he got unlucky. I got unlucky. I got unlucky with Jake. I think everyone just at the final end, exhaustion was starting to set in, and, you miss a break point on the back straight by, a couple hundred feet, and it turns into absolute disaster.
Well, I'll say it worked out. I mean, the second place isn't so bad. We had to Road Atlanta next week, though. What'd you learn this week that you can apply next, or is it just always a question mark when you enter with 2 classes that are so different but so similar on pace at the end of the day?
I think I'm getting right to iRacing to see if I can install flashers on the Mustangs. That might be number 1, but no, I mean, everyone has such a great pace in the Mustangs, so I think it's just I don't know if you can get more predictable than what we try to be, but try not to catch them in the wrong places, I suppose. It's a toss-up at this point, but it'll be fun regardless. It'll probably be a really good show.
I bet it will be. You led 1 lap in this race, Kyle. Just wasn't the last one. Thanks for chatting with us. We'll see you next week.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Went on now to Jake King, who won the race in the FR500 class, brings it home as the winner. Started third, finished first. He led 4 of the 15 laps, Jake, but that doesn't tell the whole story. It was a wild one out.
Yeah, it was pretty dramatic right up to the end.
Take us through your race, battling up front there. There was a couple situations where you saw you almost lose the car in turn 1 in particular. Dropped the tires off to the left and had a big tank slapper. How hard were you working to keep that car straight?
I was working real hard to keep up with Chris. I was doing everything I could, trying to get beside him, not letting him get away. And he ended up, squeezing me. And it's a racing deal, putting wheels off and just trying my best to keep up with him. And once Kyle got by me, I was just trying to stay in line. And the lap traffic inevitably, allowed me to catch up.
Well, it certainly felt like a roll of the dice there towards the end with everybody slipping and sliding. But congratulations, Jake. We'll see you next week at Road Atlanta.
Thanks. See you guys there. Thank you.
Ken House Heel brought home second in the GMX5 class, and Podium for Ken. Led some laps in that race as well, Ken. But, man, DJ, every time.
Just an absolutely fantastic battle all race. It's so fun. These things race so well. It didn't quite work out at the end. Was hoping the Mustangs would wait in the S's on the last lap. I was going to give DJ a little boop and spook him into South Bend and see where I could go from there, but didn't quite work out. Really fun racing.
It looked like it and seemed like it, and we talked a little bit about the multi-class interaction between these two categories. Cars of a similar era, they make speed very differently. One's a hammer, one's a chisel, but at a track like this, if you don't catch the traffic on the straightaway, it makes for some really interesting interactions. What was that like the last couple laps when, especially in a roller coaster, the FR 500 leaders came sailing by and then immediately right off the racetrack?
Yeah, that was... DJ saw them making a mistake, and I was just buried so far into his rear bumper that I didn't see what was going on, and I was just pushing DJ into the braking zone. And then they all just fell off the track in front of us. It would have been perfect if they had just passed there, and it would have been pretty clean, but didn't quite work out. And then, like I said, the Mustangs had so much more pace in the straight line. Like, into the S's, the Mustang passed us, and it's like, gave DJ a nice draft up the S's.
Well, it's certainly fun to watch. I know, Ken, you'll be out next week on a little special vacation, so enjoy the rest of your week, and next week as well. We'll see you back week 3.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. Take it easy.
See you next time, Ken. Thanks for talking. All right. Well, I don't think we're going to get DJ. He is golfing right now, digitally golfing. So he's already off on vacation with his trophy and all the fine dining of whatever you get for winning the club race virtually. But I will say, what a fun race that was, Vinny, and just a good night all around. A little bit of dramas there towards the end, but it made it unpredictable and entertaining.
Yeah, definitely made it entertaining. Some might argue too entertaining in the Mustang category, but just some fantastic racing overall from the leaders, keeping it interesting all race long.
All right, that's going to wrap things up tonight from the WDCR SCCA Virtual Racing League. Road Atlanta next week. We'll see you there next time. From Virginia International Raceway, I'm Kyle Heyer with Finney DeCuna. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.